Hi, Miriam. We're going to talk about the Education Secretary. That's Bridget Phillipson, and she has criticised private schools for crying wolf. What's this over?
This is over the tax hikes or the decision to put VAT on education for the first time ever, which has obviously increased the private school costs. But lots of parents are obviously very worried about this. I think 77 schools have closed since the implementation of the VAT, but it's particularly affecting parents of children with special needs who can't be catered for in the state sector and so have taken the often very, very expensive decision to educate their children privately, and now they really can't afford it.
And that's the one thing. I have 4 children, and one of them went to a private school simply because that's what we had to do. We're not bore you with the details, but there we are. I didn't want to send him to a private school, but we sent him to a private school, and I wouldn't change anything. He had a great education. Most of all, he was happy. Yeah. He was very, very happy and contented at school, which is a lovely thing, and it plays on, I think, into your adult life there as well. But let's find out what the situation is of Anna Bolter. Anna is a parent, and we're talking about this. And Anna, we're talking about your child. And who's the child we're talking about?
Well, I have 2, but my youngest one has got ASD. So for her to access state school, it's just not a thing. And when we talk about not accessing state school, I think it's really important that people understand what this means. It can be, for a lot of children, a physical thing. The actual environment of the school itself is too much. It's a sensory overload, even noises, smells, and being in a class of 30-odd children. You know, if you can't cope with 2 people, you will often see a lot of autistic children wearing headphones. And that's to block the world out because they can't let it in. So we're not really talking about choice here. And I think certainly with Bridget Phillipson's latest comments, which are just so contemptuous, you know, she says, we're crying wolf. I mean, I'm crying. Don't get me wrong. I'm crying, but it's not wolf. And how can she possibly say that when she's never met us? She doesn't speak to us. She doesn't engage with us. She doesn't come into private schools. So she has
she wants your money.
Of course she wants our money, but she wants our money, but is it going into schools, Eamon? This is the other thing, because we were told that the VAT on education was going to give 6,500 shiny new teachers in state. Well, it hasn't. Where's it gone? You know, this manifesto sounded great, didn't it? It sounded brilliant. But the ultimate truth was it was a policy that Rachel Reeves had cooked up years and years ago to abolish independent sector. Yeah,
but could your youngster not get that same sensory deprivation, that sensory help at a private school as opposed to a private school?
Well, we don't know. It's the big experiment. She would say no. So she has said she will be homeschooled. She is now 13. So again, change for her is very, very difficult. It's not like saying to another child, you know, we'll go and meet some new friends. We'll go and have a look around the school. For her, that process takes a long, long time. I mean, even moving house is difficult. Changing a bedroom round is difficult. So do I want to experiment? And this is what it comes down to with my daughter's safety, security and educational needs by moving her. The answer is no. You know, it gets to a point, and any parent who's had an ASD diagnosis will have had a safeguarding risk on their diagnosis. It gets to the point where it's safeguarding. We're not just talking about choice, as people like to think. You know, they think, well, you're choosing to put your child there. Well, actually, there's no alternative other than state school, other than homeschool. Do I take her out of the school system and take her away from friends, take her away from learning life skills and being with her peers? Do I put her in a corner of society where she can't be seen? If we can't afford the fees and we can't go into state, what do we do? You tell me where the choice is, you know, and this is it. To say that we are crying wolf it just derides every single thing. It's so contemptuous about parents just doing the best for their children, which she has done for her kids. You know, we saw Keir Starmer. His son wasn't allowed to have his revision interrupted. So he was put in a flat so that he could do that in peace. Yet we aren't allowed the choice to be able to say, the state system, my daughter's telling me the state system won't work. Why do I not respect her enough to say, OK, we're not going to do that then? If you're telling me that it is, and again, the reaction is physical. And for a lot of people that haven't seen an autistic meltdown, you might not understand what it looks like, but it can be a child's immune system, their nervous system going through the roof. They explode. They can scratch their skin off, pull their hair out, cry uncontrollably, and they're trying to regulate. They're trying to soothe themselves. But what's actually happening
Anna, you argue the case very, very well. We are out of time. We can't argue for any more time with you. But thank you for helping us understand what you're going through, and maybe we can go into it in more depth in some future programme. But for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. One of the things I learned, I was talking there about private school, is that the sort of people who use it, I mean, I thought that when I sent my child to a private school, it would be full of wealthy people. And instead, it was full of people who were just working to make ends meet and working because they believed the system was better for their children, or whether that is right or wrong. But the idea that people are overly wealthy, I think you can hit that on the head, and they work very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some people who are just incredibly rich and would send their children to private school, whatever the cost. But there are lots of people who, like you say, are working extra jobs or sacrificed other things. We don't penalise parents who get up at 4 a.m. to take their children to swimming lessons or who, take them all over to football. We don't penalise that sacrifice. So, yeah.
There we go. And if you are heading to school for 9 o'clock or so this morning, you want to know what the traffic's like, here it is.